Hello, and welcome to the Mads World Sobriety and Dating Special. I recently celebrated 100 days sober and thought it only appropriate to offer a little more insight to you guys as to why I chose to go sober, and also I thought it was great timing for Dry Jan in the UK. Please know that in this episode, I will be discussing mental health and addiction issues which might be potentially triggering for some people. If you are struggling with any of these issues yourself, please reach out to one of the services linked in the episode description. As you can understand, sharing such a personal and difficult journey with you guys requires a lot of vulnerability, so there are parts of the story that are intentionally left out or scaled back as I'm not ready to tell them in such a public sphere. After accomplishing 100 days, I've decided to stay sober as much as I can moving forward. The reason I initially chose to embark on this journey is because slowly but surely the London bubble of drinking culture took over my life and left me at a loss with who I really was. I was drinking far too much, sometimes for days on end without sleep, pushing away the people I love who cared most about me and putting myself in potentially dangerous situations. My self-care was plummeting, even at a basic level like remembering to brush my teeth. The days I spent sober were spent in turmoil with spiralling thoughts of embarrassment, flashbacks, loneliness and fear. I've battled with anxiety and depression in the past, and the amount I was drinking combined with lockdown in London brought all these issues to the surface again. After many failed attempts to moderate, for example just going to the pub for 1 or 2 pints and ending up on a bender, I decided to try total abstinence. People are always asking me, what was the turning point? Where was rock bottom? However, as Catherine Gray describes in her book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, there wasn't one point of rock bottom in my ocean. It was a series of ocean floor shelves going deeper and deeper. Sometimes you hit a point you think is your lowest, only to find you've hit even lower the following week. It was a gradual demise with failed attempts at moderation, combined with friends showing concern and sitting me down for sensitive yet textbook chats about my behaviour. Despite denying any wrongdoing, sometimes just laughing off their attempts and insisting to myself that everyone in London is the same, we're all going through this, it's lockdown, blah blah blah, I now appreciate everyone's efforts more than they know. Total abstinence for me has been far easier than moderation. Without lowering my inhibitions that small amount with just 1 or 2 drinks, I've been able to avoid romanticising the idea of just sipping a G&T in a beer garden and dismantle the fantasy of having a few red wines with the girls. It's just not something I believe I'm capable of. The first month was incredibly challenging. In fact, the first weekend was very challenging. Forcing myself to engage in social situations that normally require alcohol, such as dating, which I'll get into a bit later with my guest Angus, was a lot more difficult when I had less sober days under my belt. It would have been very easy to say, I'm only 7 days in, if I give up now it won't be too hard to start again. And there were some dates and drinks with friends in the first month where I was very close to failure. However, as the time passed and I celebrated small wins, it became a lot easier to handle the fact I wasn't drinking. I categorically knew I didn't drink and would plan accordingly, like a vegetarian knows they don't eat meat or a gluten-free person accepts they just can't have KFC. I'd inform the people I was spending time with up front that I wouldn't be drinking and why, both to make myself accountable but also to allow them to adjust before I arrived and to avoid dealing with any pressure to cave in. For example, if they had a glass of Prosecco already poured out for me or that kind of thing. I was concerned I'd miss out on things or lose friends if I wasn't able to be on the same level as them socially. However, the effect has actually been the opposite. I began to strengthen my relationships and repair them where needed. I became a much more caring and affectionate person, the kind of person that actually tidies up before having guests over and makes sure everyone has a tea or coffee. I just didn't think I was that kind of person until I actually tried being sober, and I've really surprised myself. I could feel my cognitive ability improving, and I regained a creativity I hadn't known since high school before I started drinking. My mood and mental health improvements meant that rather than daydreaming about creative projects, I actually did them. I started writing every day, drawing, reading poetry, going to art galleries, and my brain was just soaking it all up. I felt so fulfilled and excited about all the things I'd been missing out on due to the hangover-induced heavy metal anxiety concerts going on in my head all the time. I had so much creative energy to channel into something amazing. Exhibit A, this podcast you're listening to right now. I realised it was talking to people, listening to music, experiencing new things that I loved rather than the alcohol itself. And nobody needed to be shepherding me around while I was half engaged in their conversation, not being able to sing the words to my favourite song because I was so drunk, or focusing on the next drink rather than enjoying what was actually happening around me. The final month of my 100-day challenge was different. I found the physical act of not drinking very simple, just an unambiguously direct and explicit action. was grappling with the decision of what to do on my 100th day, which coincidentally turned out to be New Year's Eve, that I struggled with the most. Was having to accept the fact that I may never be able to drink again, and the fantasy of moderation was slipping away as the day drew closer and closer. On the 100th day, I swung back and forth all day about it, whether to test the waters and have a drink or just continue with what I'd been working so hard at. I had a realization that if I could enjoy the last 100 days in their entirety, and the only periods of sadness or FOMO were in the lead up to a party, not while I was actually there, I could continue this journey one day at a time. The feeling of inexplicable joy the following morning of January 1st at my achievement is something I'm still carrying with me now. I might slip up, will probably feel pretty ashamed of it, and I'm not quite ready to accept that I may never have a drink again, but when I inevitably do make a mistake or have a relapse, it takes the pressure off so much knowing that I've nurtured the relationships around me and I trust that the people who've helped me through this experience will still be there for me. The last thing I want to do before we jump into our chat with our guest is give you some questions to ponder in your own time. They're not accusatory, just more to get you thinking about the way that you approach drinking in your own life. Have you ever done something you never thought you would do while intoxicated? What's the worst thing you've ever done while drunk? How do you feel after drinking? Does it make you feel better after the first 2 drinks? How about 5 drinks or 10 drinks? Can you afford to drink as much as you do? Does drinking result in doing other things that harm your body? Do you usually do things you regret while drunk? Do you wallow in embarrassment the following day? Have you fucked up any personal relationships? And what's the worst thing you broke or damaged while intoxicated? Your phone? Your leg? It's been the most liberating and mentally challenging experience of my life going sober. I'm not afraid to share the story with you all as it's something I'm very proud of. Joining me up next is Angus for a chat about sober dating. Sober since October 2019, Angus has put his cocaine addiction and drug dealing behind him. Angus runs a podcast of his own called Sober Diaries, where he discusses addiction, sobriety, and the UK's fucked up drinking culture. Enjoy! Hello, Angus.
Hello.
How are you?
I am tired.
Tired?
Yeah.
What have you been doing all day? Have you been at work?
I've just been doing lots of random odd jobs.
Random odd jobs, admin work. Love that for a Sunday.
I know. I'll be getting ready for the big, the first Monday of the year.
Love that. And I think as well, at least you're not hungover.
No, I'm not.
Cool. All right. Well, let's jump straight into our speed date round so that listeners at home can get a bit more of an idea of who you are. So did you want to tell me a little bit more about the work you do with encouraging others to stay sober?
So I have a few different mediums. I have a podcast, which I think you've listened to, called Sober Diaries. I'm currently in kind of planning stages for Sober Diaries 2, which will hopefully kind of be as well received as the first one. I also kind of have a WhatsApp group with people who are sober or sober curious or just need kind of general support from this aspect in this aspect of their life. And we also have an Instagram, which is at Let's Talk Sobriety.
Awesome. I can link that in the episode description for everybody as well. So yeah, that's all really great. And because this is a dating podcast, I think it's relevant to ask, how long have you been single or in a relationship?
I have been single since I was 21. So I'm 26 now.
26 now. Cool. And then how long have you been sober?
15 months.
15 months. Good on you.
Thank you very much.
That is a stint. How was passing 1 year mark? How did that make you feel?
1 year was big. It was very big. Unfortunately, the kind of restrictions in the UK didn't allow me to do much. No, it was a long time coming. I always knew I'd get to the year. But I think there was a lot of people who didn't or were just kind of waiting to see that. I think 1 year is a real statement.
Yeah.
Everyone can go, okay, I'm going to be sober for a bit and do a month or a few months. But I think, especially if you knew me back before I was sober, a year is a real statement of intent, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Congratulations so much. That's incredible. And I think I discussed this previously in my little essay that I've written about what it was like to go sober. And I think once you hit certain milestones, there is something inside you that sort of switches and you find the motivation to stay sober a lot. I wouldn't say easier. It's difficult in different ways, but yeah, no, that's really impressive. Good on you.
How sober are you? How long have you been sober?
So 103 days. So New Year's Eve was my 100th day, which is very exciting. So
sick. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, it was a weird day because I was wondering, initially this was a 100-day challenge for me, and I was just seeing, like, putting myself to the test, and I went through and faced a lot of demons and that sort of thing right before I decided to go complete, like, teetotal, total abstinence and everything. And yeah, I was deciding whether or not to have a drink on New Year's, and then went through that whole process, which was really hard, but managed to stay sober. And I woke up the next day just feeling absolutely incredible. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, how often would you say that you go on dates then?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Awesome.
I love a date. Yeah, I'm a proper. I love dates.
Wonderful. Well, this is a dating podcast.
Good. Well, I'm glad I'm in the right place. But yeah, I love dates now because it's a lot more fun doing sober dates.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more variety. There's a lot. I really have to challenge myself because for me, I know I'm not drinking. I know that kind of. A lot of people I will go on a date with may have a drink, and that might be fun for them to kind of go to the pub and they get to meet me. Obviously, it's going to be fun for them. But they might have a drink and that might kind of be enough for them. Whereas I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. I don't just want to keep going to the pub and go for a drink or not have a drink and go for some food. I want to spice things up. So I like to do activities. I like to go out and do cool shit and do stuff that I haven't done before. So dating is a fun way to do that.
Yes, definitely. And I think this is something I definitely realized in my first month of being sober. So I went on my very first completely sober date a couple of weeks in. I just threw myself into the ring and said, if I can stay sober on this date, like, this is going to make things way easier for me. So I went to this board game bar up I think it's in Dalston. I'll have to, find out the name and put it in the episode description. But it was such a good thing to kind of, rather than focusing on that next drink and that next, like waiting for who's going to get the next drink, what are you going to order, blah, 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 to have something else to speak about and to focus on. So we played like Operation, we played Battleships. It was really nice. Yeah,
it's a good one is bowling. I love bowling anyway. Bowling, axe throwing I've been doing recently.
Ooh.
Even just kind of in the summer I was doing a bunch of park dates, which is really nice. There's picnics and a bit of music, and it's you get to see a whole different side of someone as well, which I think is a good thing.
What would you say your usual type of girl is?
I don't know. I don't think I have a type. I think I look for certain things, but I wouldn't say that they added up to a type.
What kind of things would you look for?
I look for things. I like someone who gets my humor. If they don't, it's normally a bad sign, because my humor, that is something I'm very kind of, I will just chat a lot of shit and try and make people laugh. And if it's not working, it's quite, if my humor doesn't amuse you, it's normally not a good sign. But yeah, I like someone who likes my humor, and I also like someone with their bit of, with their own sense of humor who kind of makes me laugh.
Bit of spunk about them.
Exactly. Someone with a bit of, it's putting me in my place is a good thing as well. Oh
yeah, whip you into line. Mummy issues.
If I say something a bit kind of big-headed, I like someone to go, calm down. You're not, and just to really, really kind of don't fall for all my bullshit, basically.
Yeah. No, that's, love that. And I love that we're getting something different now that you're the first straight guy on the podcast. We're getting something different than tall, dark and handsome for once.
Fair play, yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to ask as well, so this question doesn't normally come up in speed date round, but have you found that your usual type has changed since becoming sober?
I think whereas before there would be a big incompatibility with someone if they didn't like drinking, if they didn't like doing drugs. So that would never have worked before. And it's kind of more of the opposite. So if there's someone who, really enjoys kind of getting on it and going out and partying and really drinking heavily and using drugs a lot, it's generally, it's not compatible. And I think that's the main kind of flip that I've seen.
Yeah, 100%. I think in the same sort of vein, something that's changed massively for me is needing the person to be able to deliver on the conversation and deliver on those interesting topics and, be able to make me laugh and everything, because you don't have alcohol as that sort of social lubricant where if, there's any awkward moments or if you're not really finding anything to speak about, it's it can be quite awkward. So I think 100%. On sober dates, you really need them to deliver.
Yeah, and I think I actually surprise a lot of people. I don't always, I don't often kind of lead with, I don't drink, by the way. So it would only be once we're on the date. And sometimes I can be 2 or 3 drinks in. I'll be drinking non-alcoholic beer and they won't even know that it's non-alcoholic beer because I'll be getting the drinks or something. And then it will come up and they go, really? But you're so bubbly and you've got so much energy. It seems like you're having a drink. So I think for me, I've never needed, and it was really nice to kind of actually to find out and to work out that I never needed the alcohol to kind of bring out my personality. My personality was always there. I think, it surprises some people.
Yeah. And you know what as well? A lot of people sort of think, oh, without booze, like I'm not going to be as funny, I'm not going to be as charming and that kind of thing. And it's become really apparent that you're only more charming to yourself and you're only more funny to yourself. And it's all internalized, but that external person that you're projecting isn't this charming, funny, incredible person that you think they are. Like if you're just slurring your words or you're just yelling louder or whatever, you're not actually funnier and more charming. You're just
Amen.
Yeah, you're
Amen
just kind of
Yeah.
being a dick. So, yeah. Awesome. Well, that is the speed date round. So I hope everyone out there has kind of got a little bit of a grasp on who you are. And as this is a dating podcast where we do like to have a bit of story time and share our funniest or our most tragic dating stories, I wanted to know if you have a particular story that you wanted to share with our listeners.
I've got many. Is it a good one or a bad one, do you think? What would the listeners prefer?
I mean, the listeners love a bad dating story. I think we need the funniest dating story you've got.
I tell you what I'll do then. I'll give you a dating story of before I got sober.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's just bad. This is just sad and basically. But I went on a date with this girl who I really fancied, and we met in the pub and we kind of knew each other. And then I finally managed to persuade her to go on a date with me, picked her up. And for some reason, I used to take people to my local pub because I loved the razzmatazz of knowing everyone in the pub. And I thought it made me look really cool if I could kind of, if people were coming up to me and going, hey, Angus, what's going on? And so I was already pretty fucked up by the time we met, drunk, and I'd had a lot of coke and had definitely cracked on and started it without her. And it's Friday night, got to my local pub, literally picked a seat right in the middle of the pub. It's a huge, huge local pub. Anyone who is from North London will know the Mossy Well in Muswell Hill. Big up.
Shout out.
Yeah, sat down in the middle of the room and I was like, I'm just going to get some drinks. What do you want? So I ordered a drink. And then about half an hour later, I made it back to the table because I'd been doing the rounds. So I went and bought the drinks and then I kind of walked around the whole pub and said hello to everyone. And she was fucking livid. She was like, why the fuck have you brought me here? If you ever do some shit like this again, I'm going to fucking go, I'll never speak to you again. Because basically what I'd done is I sat her in the middle of the pub and then left for like half an hour, 40 minutes.
Checking her watch,
So, we come back with some warm drinks. And I was just, just saying hello to my mates. And then, she wasn't really best pleased, and we left. We had to leave in the end.
Angus,
and
no.
Make up to her in other ways. And but that one didn't work out.
Didn't go down so well. Was this one of the many things that led to going sober? I hope you haven't done anything like this again.
There was a thousand things that led to going sober, but I guess the pub that pub was definitely one of them.
Just like a wormhole.
I used to head there on like a Friday after work. We're not with any plans to meet anybody, just knowing that I would see people that I knew, which is quite sad when you look at it. And I would just walk around, and they weren't my mates, so they weren't like my close friends. They were just people that I knew from the pub. But then I just, I would convince myself I was having a great time because I was drunk and doing drugs.
100%.
And I'd always end up going back to some scatty little house doing the same shit every weekend, basically, with the same people, talking the same bullshit stories. But now life is good.
Awesome. Well, we've got a section called Left on Red, and the reason it's called Left on Red is because if somebody does leave you on red, you're left questioning everything about yourself. You're left questioning your situation, questioning your relationships, questioning your universe. So we've got some listener questions that people have submitted about sober dating for this week's show. And the first one we've got is, what is the best sober date you've been on and why was it so good?
Can I just quickly jump in? Left on red, guys. The way to to not have that problem is turn off your read receipts, and then you're never wondering if you've been left on read. And also it means you can read other people's messages without having to
I do
reply.
like that, but also I'm just too curious. I have to know. I just have to know.
Well, then you're going to be left on read then. Best sober date. I was thinking about this because you sent me over the questions. I was trying to work out my best sober date, and I don't think I can pick one, but I think the whole vibe of sober dating is just an incredible one. When you've been drunk dating for, in air quotes, drunk dating for 10 years or so, sober dating is just so refreshing. And I've had a few dates with people, and they've said this is my first ever sober date. And they've loved it as well, because it adds it's another dimension. I think it's so repetitive. Going for a drink with someone you've never met them before, you have 3 or 4 drinks, you get a bit tipsy and a bit horny, and then you might kiss them and you might fuck them. Basically. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can swear. Go wild. Fuck.
Thank fuck for that. But basically, I'm kind of fucking bored of that being the thing, because you don't really connect with anyone when you date that way. You might have sex with them, but is that the goal that you're really looking for? I'm 26 now. I'm not looking for a shag. I can, and if I am, it's not hard to find, but I wouldn't even take the person on a date.
That's the culture in London anyway. It's just, it's just transactional, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think the sober dating just allows you to really go, do I like this person first? Do I want to hang out with this person in a sober environment the next day, in the daytime? You know, and you don't have to, you're not kind of worried, thinking. And I think especially for me, I like it when the person I go on a date with, even if they do drink, I like it when they don't, because then if they kiss me or if something does happen, it's because they've wanted it, because they fancy my mind, and they fancy my charm and my charisma. It's not the alcohol telling them that they're a bit horny and I'm quite fit.
100%.
So that is what I would say about, so all my sober dates are my best sober.
Aw, love that. Yeah, I think I
know, lame.
No, it's quite sweet. And I think you're so right in saying, like, I loved when you said like if you want to hang out with someone the next day, because you're not going to wake up in their bed like with your head swimming with regret and just having this awful anxious turmoil where you're like, oh, what have I done or whatever. But I think the second sober date I went on in maybe the second month of my 100 days sober was with this lovely guy called Rob, and we met up at Junkyard Golf in Shoreditch, which is just like,
strong.
Yeah, really cute, really fun. You can get like a nice little mocktail there. And he was like, oh, if you're not drinking, I'm not going to drink. And we just like had so much good conversation. Like, he was so funny. And like, I think we both sort of knew that it was like a friend's kind of a vibe, but it was just nice. And then we just wandered around Shoreditch, went and had a little Vietnamese on Kingsland Road, and like, it was just so nice to chat to someone, and like, I knew straight up that if I had drank, then you probably
would have kissed him, right?
Yeah, probably would have kissed him, and I probably would have gone home with him, if I'm honest. And
then it would have given him some bad signals, and then even though you knew it was better off as friends, it would have just caused the whole drama.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just like, I can just go on, like, enjoy that experience, have a nice time with this guy who's just so lovely, and having lots of jokes and have a nice meal and everything, and then you just kind of don't have to wake up with that regret. You can just look back on it as a nice experience rather than just filled with anxiety type thing.
Yeah, lovely.
I was going to say, what is the worst sober date you've ever had? Have you ever had a bad sober date where the chat just wasn't there and it was just awkward?
A bad sober date is when the other person decides that they're going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
And that has happened a couple of times.
Has it? That hasn't happened to me, because I've actually, I've started dating my housemate in the last month. So I only had a few sober dates, like over 2 months kind of thing, like maybe 4. But I've never been on a date where the other person gets totally trashed. So what is that like?
Yeah, it's intense. It's an intense vibe. Because the first question to go through your head is, they know I'm sober, so what the fuck is wrong with them?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of, are they getting drunk because I'm boring, or because they don't, is this not going well? Like, I thought it was going quite well. And then it's just kind of, it can just get sloppy, and it's just, and then you're just babysitting, which is boring. And also especially as a guy in that situation, it takes away all sense of, okay, this, I don't even want to kind of kiss them, or I don't want to do anything like that, because I'm sober and there's a drunk girl. That is not.
Yeah.
And that's just not a vibe for
day one stuff. You just don't want to engage, and 100%. Like, you don't want to give anyone the wrong idea, or I mean, all the stories you hear, it's just a nightmare. Yeah.
And it has happened sometimes. They'll get drunk and try and kiss me, and I'm like, I can't. I really don't. There's nothing that's turning me on about this situation. Nothing at all. So probably let's just call it a night.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite hard to tell people that as well. They don't get it, and they do the classic drunk girl thing, which is like, "Oh, but what? Do you not fancy me? Am I not pretty enough?" Blah blah blah.
No, I'm glad I've never had to go through this. Our next question is, what do you find most difficult about first dates sober? So I suppose that sort of leads into that, like if the other person is drinking or getting too drunk. I think for me, this one would kind of link back to if the person has no chat, or if you kind of, you're just stuck feeling a little bit awkward and they're not really vibing the whole no drinking thing. But yeah, I guess, was there anything else apart from the other person getting totally shit-faced that you find hard? It
is difficult trying to come up with ideas which are fun for both parties.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes a lot of people, they're so used to let's go for a drink for our first date. Mm-hmm. And that's just because that's what they're used to. And, they might not be big drinkers or anything, but they need to have that kind of, that safety blanket of having a couple of drinks in them to actually get their full personality out of them.
Yeah.
So I'm very good, but I'm used to it now. I'll sit there and chat all night as if I'm on a bag of gear, because it's just who I am. I'm a very chatty person, very bubbly person, very open person, drink or no drink. Whereas I think a lot of people, they can be quite shy in real life. They can, they cannot really get into the flow of the date unless they've had a couple of drinks. And then sometimes they might feel bad for drinking because I'm not drinking and they don't have the drink. And then it turns, as you said, it can be quite awkward. The chat might not be there.
Yeah. So it's not even like, someone getting totally shit-faced. It's sort of like if their mind is still on alcohol. I know when I was using Hinge a lot in my first couple of months, and you can ask questions on Hinge. So like about your profile, it's sort of like you answer 3 questions about yourself, and so many people's profiles just related to alcohol straight away, and you'd match with them. And
yeah. Oh, me too.
Yeah. It was such a pain in the ass, because I was kind of like, I don't know how to tell you up front that I don't drink, and I feel like I'm lying to you if I don't. So this one guy was like, you could come over because it's lockdown. We could do wine and cheese night and we could watch a movie. And I was like, I'm not drinking at the moment. So I could just, do without the wine. And he's like, that's such a shame that we can't do that. I'm like, bro, we can do it. Like, you don't have to have the wine. We can just have the cheese in the movie.
Yeah, I just put it on my Hinge profile, so I'm on Hinge as well, ladies, if you're out there listening.
Oh, Angus is on Hinge, look out.
But yeah, I just put it straight up. I say I don't drink. I don't think a lot of people see that, or they just think I'm joking, because I look like a drinker.
Yeah,
I look like someone who smashes drugs on a regular.
Yeah, like an edgy Londoner kind of guy. I know the kind of guy you're talking about.
Proper, yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think a lot of people, they either think I'm joking or they just ignore it. But I think it is the best to be upfront with that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And then leading on from that question about what we find most difficult, what would you say you find easy about a first date when you're sober?
There's no bravado. It's just like I just kind of talk about myself. I'm not kind of worried. I think there's a lot of second guessing that goes on when you have a drink, or when the other person's had a drink, especially, and once again, it kind of leads back to that thing. I want someone to fancy my intellect and my personality, and want to take my personality home, not just have a drink. I don't want that alcohol in them to want to take me home. I want their brain to want to take me home. Yeah,
definitely. I think you're so right, and you can just sort of be yourself. Like, and if they like you for you, it's because it's you, and it's not just whatever drugs or alcohol that you've been consuming that night. Exactly. That it's for who you are. Yeah.
And I think that a first date is I think you only have kind of one first date when you're not drinking. If you're drinking, you can have 5 first dates with the same person, because you're doing the same thing each time. You're just getting drunk in a pub, not really learning much about each other, or what little you are learning about each other, you're forgetting. Then you're taking each other home, and then you're probably still feeling a bit nervous and shy around that person in the morning.
Like, who is this person?
Yeah. If you take someone home sober for the first time, you learn a lot of things about that person on the date. You learn a lot about things about that person in bed, and then you don't forget them. And then it's progress the next time you meet each other. It's not there's no repeats. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think that's why, like, I've got nothing against anyone that drinks. I can't talk. I was literally an absolute wreckhead for up until 100 days ago. But I mean, I think some of the best relationships are born out of friendships, and it's because you do spend a lot of time with your friends when you are sober, and you can learn about them and learn what they like, what they don't like. And you're right in saying that progress comes from building on those things that you learn about each other. And if you are going out and getting shit-faced together and just forgetting all of that stuff, it's just like starting at day one every time you see each other again.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, our next question is, how do you approach a sober first kiss? So I've got a little story I can tell about this one, which is a story I wanted to tell in our story time round, but I thought it would fit in a little bit better here. So I went to a comedy gig in the first, it must have been my second month of being sober, and it was in Stoke Newington at a comedy club there, and the host of the comedy club, I thought he was so funny and just so witty and so cool and so hot. I was like, you know what? This is the new Mads, and if I was drinking, I would go ask him out, but fuck it, I'm sober and I'm just going to go and do it. So I went up to him. I said, hey, I think you're really cool. Would you want to go out with me? Can I give you my number? And he was like, wow, yeah, awesome. That's so good. I was like, by the way, I don't drink and I'm not going to drink if we hang out, and I hope that's fine. He was like, so you're doing this sober? I was like, yep, this is what's happening. He was just like, that's incredible. Wow. And he was so impressed, and I just felt so good about myself. And anyway, we ended up going for like a lunchtime date at Flatiron in Shoreditch. So I just walked down there. We had a little hour date, like between our lunch breaks on work. And then at the end of the date, I was thinking, oh, I really, really want to kiss this guy, but I just don't know. Like, I don't know if, if he's enjoyed the date. And it was the middle of the day. We were on the street, and he just grabbed me and then started kissing me in broad daylight. We were both sober, and honestly, I have to say, it was one of the most magical kisses I've ever had.
It's fucking hot.
Yes, it was so hot, because I was just like, he actually likes me for my conversation and my brain and like my jokes, and I was it didn't work out, lol, but it was amazing. Like
sorry to the new boyfriend if you're listening.
Yeah, well, you know what.
But you've never kissed her like that. So
No, yeah, so it was just and it went on. I practically skipped home. I was listening to all these like happy songs. I skipped home. I'm like, honestly, I've never had a first kiss like that. And I think, you just have to kind of go for it. Like we hugged, and then he just like grabbed my face and went for it. And I love that. I just think the confidence of it all is like, how can you say no,
Yeah, it took me a long time to get to that place.
Really? I mean, you're the boy though, so the boy is expected to lead.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it took me a long time to work up the courage to, back in the day, I would kiss anyone. with no kind of no second thought. I'd be like, fuck it, I'm gonna kiss you, and then just kiss them. But I was always kind of propelled by drugs and alcohol. But becoming that confident, because there is a whole lot of second guessing. Like, do they want to kiss me? What if I kiss them? Are they gonna are they gonna reject me? Whereas before, if you're drunk, you don't really care about that. You just kind of go for it, and it does give you, what they call Dutch courage. But I've spent a long time kind of pondering being on a date and going, oh fuck, I wish I'd kissed her then, or should I kiss her now? Or going home and going, I never kissed her. What the fuck? What are you doing with yourself, Angus? You idiot. But I say just go for it, man.
I think living with blokes as well, because I live with two straight guys, and they the turmoil that follows when you don't kiss a girl, and then we come home and me and Molly are both living here like, oh my God, did you kiss her? And he's like, no, I got scared. Like, do you think that's okay? And we're like, I can't believe you didn't kiss her. She's gonna think you don't like her. And like, just seeing you guys obsess about it, I'm like, I didn't realize that guys actually thought about it this much.
Oh, mate, it is stress. 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 Nowadays, it's not stress, but honestly, it was like 3 or 4 months of my life. I was like, fucking, because I was so used to, as well, kind of. So we're going a little bit off tangent, but I was so used to kind of having sex whilst on something. That I kind of started second guessing my sexual prowess as well. And I was like, fuck, what if I'm rubbish in bed now because I'm sober? What if I don't last long enough? And honestly, that became a real, like, I had a kind of an episode.
Yeah, like a complex about it.
I went kind of celibate for 6 weeks because I was just like, I need to I need to restart this whole. I didn't sleep with anyone for about 6 weeks, and it's worked itself back out. But yeah, if you're thinking about going sober and that happens, it's normal.
It's so normal. The first sober shag is terrifying. Honestly, it's so. I mean, it's either going to be like amazing, magical, whatever, if you're with someone you really like, but I think it can easily be really clunky, really unorganized, quite awkward. Like, I mean, it all. I mean, it's like the same as drunk shags. Like, it depends on how much you like the person and how well you know them and everything. But yeah, it's terrifying. So our final question that's been sent through from one of our listeners is, do you think the trajectory of a relationship is faster or slower when you're not drinking?
I would say it's 100% faster. Definitely faster. Because of what I said earlier, each date is a step forward. Each time you see that person is a step forward. It's not, it can even just be like a hookup, like a booty call. Don't get me wrong, I've had sober booty calls, but there's always some progress, and there's always a kind of a progression towards a deeper relationship. Even if that if you're not trying to have a relationship with someone, you can be accidental, and you just the next thing you know, you spent 10 days with someone out of a few months, but those 10 days are memorable. You remember all of it. You remember the conversations you have deep, meaningful conversations about politics and fucking religion and life, and you just you could, like, if you click with someone, you will just talk about mad shit with them.
Definitely. I think with that comedian that I went on a few dates with, it escalated so quickly. I think because we'd been out for dinner and been out for drinks like 5, or not drinks, but like sober drinks, like 5 times, and it's sort of, you're right, like every time you hang out it's so memorable, and you sort of feel and remember the ins and outs of everything that happened. And we just kind of ended up like hanging out at each other's houses and like hanging out after work together and stuff, because your life's not built around going out and getting shit-faced, and you're never hungover, so you can do those morning things. And
they're the best.
I think the trajectory of relationships is definitely a lot steeper when you're not drinking, purely because those connections are so much more real. And as you said, you don't have to go back to day one every time you're hanging out.
Wicked.
Well, that was all of our questions, and you've been an absolutely amazing guest to have on the podcast. This is a really special podcast for me, and obviously quite a vulnerable one for me as well, because I'm still on my baby deer legs with this whole sober thing. But is there a note you wanted to leave it on for the listeners now that we're wrapping up? So
I think it's good timing. So it's January. I think a lot of people like to jump on the kind of the dry Jan wave, and I would always actively encourage that. But one thing that I would say, so you did a 100 days, didn't you? That's how it started for you.
Yeah, 100 days.
So I think 100 days is the exact amount of time that you need in order to feel the full benefits of not drinking. I've done dry Jan 2 or 3 times before in my life, and it always ended either a couple of days early, or it ended on the last day with me going out and getting fucked up. And I don't think the period of time is long enough to really unlock the kind of the mental health and the well-being that not drinking provides. So, but 3 months. So I remember on my 3-month anniversary, I just felt like a whole kind of a change in my thinking around booze. And I know a lot of people out there will have, they've started drinking when they're 13, 14 and haven't stopped drinking ever since then. And I would just challenge people to do 100 days, do 3 months sober. And I guarantee you will learn things about yourself you didn't even know existed. You'll really understand your personality in positions where normally you'd be drunk, you'd be making decisions drunk, and now you don't have that to fall back on. So you have to actually understand the decisions that you make. And I'll leave it on that. Yeah. Good luck to everyone. And if not, carry on, but respect people who don't drink on a first date.
Yes, that's the main thing. Don't put the pressure on. I was terrible for this. I have to admit, I think I went out with a sober guy once, and I was one of those girls that got absolutely trashed. But don't do a me. Please respect the no drinking.
Yeah, and maybe try, even if you don't want to stop drinking for a dry Jan or even for the 100 days, just do a sober date and see what it's like.
Yeah, love that. Do a sober date and see what it's like. All right, that is a fantastic note to leave it on, and you've been an awesome guest. Thank you so much, Angus.
Thanks for having me.
Woo, bye.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Angus. please let me know on my Instagram. It's at madsworld.mp3 if you've got any stories or thoughts of your own to share. Again, some of this content in today's episode may have been potentially triggering, and I put some support services in the episode description. Love and elbow taps. Peace.